Hey everybody, my name is Tom McFarland and I'm going to be your instructor for the Tuts Plus course on understanding WordPress post meta boxes. Now throughout this course, we're going to take a look at what WordPress meta boxes are. We're going to build a plugin that implements one of our own, and we're going to understand the ins and outs of the API so that we can be more efficient and effective in our day-to-day work. In this first lesson, I want to take a brief survey of what WordPress meta boxes are, as well as some of the key API documents that we're going to be using. Lastly, I'll also cover what we're going to be doing throughout the rest of this course. So with that said, let's get started. First, notice that I have a local development environment set up. Don't worry about this right now, as we're going to be setting all of this up in the next lesson. But as you see, I'm here at the WordPress dashboard, which you are probably very familiar with. You see that I have my Right Now section, Quick Press, Recent Drafts, WordPress blog, and you'll actually notice that I have recent comments here in my recent comments section. And this is because I like to load up my development environment with test data in order to get a feel for what my project's going to look like in the real world. With that said, let's click on the Post menu and then click on Add New. From here, you should see everything that you're used to seeing. There's the Post Editor, the Publish menu, the format, if your theme supports post formats. There's the categories, tags, and featured image. Now let's scroll back up to the top, and under the screen options, click on it, and then let's say discussion, slug, and let's also click on excerpt. Next, we'll collapse the screen options and we'll scroll down a bit. Notice that here's the excerpt, here's our discussion field, and then here's our slug field. Now the main point in bringing all of this up is because everything that is not the post editor is considered a meta box. That means publish, format, categories, tags, excerpt, discussion, and slug are all meta boxes. And you can notice that some are here on the sides, some are here located at the very top. Similarly, there's some directly under the post editor, and they're also ordered a certain way. All of this is configurable by the API, and we're going to take a look at this throughout the course. Notice also that each meta box supports a variety of user interface elements. This includes text, anchors, buttons, inputs, text areas, checkboxes, and so on. Now let's say that we're going to write a post, and we'll call it Hello World. And then let's say we'll disallow comments, we'll disallow trackbacks. Our excerpt will say, this is a short greeting to the planet. We'll also give this a content category. We'll give it a tag of example, and then we'll publish it. Now notice when the page refreshes, all of our content's been saved. This includes our excerpt, our discussion has been unchecked, our category has been checked, and our example persists. This all has to do with the WordPress MetaBox API, and we're going to look at this more in future lessons. Now what I'd like to do is turn our attention to the WordPress MetaBox API. If you load up the WordPress codex, and under the function reference you get an add_meta_box, you'll land on the Add MetaBox page. Now you can ignore the parameters for now, as we're going to look at these in detail and in great depth in future lessons. But I would say that you should at least survey the article to get familiar with where we're going. Notice also that there is quite a bit of example code here. This code is just giving you a glimpse of everything that's going on behind the scenes when it comes to saving data. Notice additionally that you can remove a meta box. This comes in handy, especially in client projects where they don't necessarily need every meta box that WordPress offers. So using this, you're able to remove some of the clutter on the screen that they may not need or that is irrelevant for their purposes. We won't really be looking at this during our course, but it's useful to know that it's there. Next, I'd like to turn our attention to post meta, and this is metadata or data that is associated with any post that you're working with. And there's several functions that are useful for working with this. Again, don't worry too much about the parameters right now, as we're going to be using them extensively throughout the course. However, it is helpful to peruse these articles just to see what the API offers. Add post meta will allow you to insert some information into the database related to a certain post. There's also a function called update post meta, and this function will update an existing piece of information. And lastly, there's also a delete post meta function, and this function is useful because it allows you to, just as it says, delete post meta information that's in the database. Again, we'll look at this in more detail throughout the rest of the course. Finally, just to give you guys an idea as to where we're headed, in the next lesson we're going to set up our local development environment, and after that we're going to understand the WordPress Metabox API. We're going to treat this like a true software project, and so it makes sense to understand what it is that we're going to be working with before we actually jump in to start coding. Additionally, we're going to plan the features and maybe sketch out some user interface designs before we get started so that we get an idea as to what elements that we need to incorporate into our Metabox before we start coding it. After that, we're going to tie everything together by displaying the information on the front end of the site or on the front end of the blog. And then at the end of the course, we'll tie everything together with a plugin and with a summary of everything we've discussed. So I'm really excited about this course. I can't wait to get started, and I will see you in the next lesson.